Most guys make the same mistake when they're getting to know a woman. They ask. They ask about her past, her exes, her childhood, her last heartbreak. And on the surface, that seems honest, right? Like you're just trying to connect. But here's the thing. The moment you ask, she starts curating, editing, filtering, not even because she's being manipulative, but because that's how people protect themselves. And that means the version of the past you get is the version she wants you to see. But what if you didn't have to ask? What if you could know her past, not through the stories she chooses to tell, but through the signs she doesn't even know she's showing? Because here's the truth. People don't just talk about their past, they live it. It shows up in their habits, their reactions, their silence, their casual comments, the way they look at you when you say certain words. Her past is written all over her if you know what to look for. You don't need to be Sherlock Holmes, and you definitely don't need to interrogate her. You just need to observe. And once you learn how, you'll know more about her than even her closest friends. You'll know whether she's still haunted by someone, whether she's healed, whether she can build a future, or if she's still living in the wreckage of her past. In this video, I'll show you exactly how to read those signs, what they actually mean, and how to protect yourself from being blindsided by a story you didn't ask to be part of. 1. Her relationship with attention, social cues. One of the easiest ways to peek into a woman's emotional past is to watch how she handles attention, especially from men. Not just how she reacts when you compliment her, but how she moves in a room, how she interacts online, how she responds when the spotlight is on her. Does she subtly downplay it and stay grounded, or does she light up like it's the first time she's ever felt seen? Pay attention to how often she brings up male attention, unprompted. If she's always talking about who's in her DMs, how many guys flirted with her at the gym, or how men just won't leave her alone, it might not be about the stories. It might be about the need behind them. A woman who was ignored, neglected, or made to feel invisible in a past relationship, whether romantic or even in childhood, often learns to measure her worth by how many eyes are on her. And the thing is, she might not even be aware of it. It's not about vanity, it's about validation. There's a difference between a woman who enjoys attention and one who needs it to feel whole. The former is fun, the latter is dangerous, because the moment that attention stops coming from you, she might start looking elsewhere, even if she doesn't mean to. That's not disloyalty. That's an emotional addiction. You're not looking for clues in how she dresses or how many selfies she posts. You're looking for why she does it. Does she crave admiration or connection? That one question alone can tell you more about her past relationships than any story she'd ever tell you out loud. 2. How she talks about other women. You can learn a lot about a woman, not just by how she talks to you, but by how she talks about other women. Pay close attention to those little moments when she brings up her female friends, co-workers, or even complete strangers. Is her tone kind and supportive, or is it laced with sarcasm, judgment, or competition? If every woman she mentions is fake, a mess, trying too hard, or probably cheating on her boyfriend, that's not just a personality quirk. That's a mirror reflecting back her own unresolved insecurities, her past betrayals, or rivalries that left scars she still carries. You're not just listening to her words, you're listening to what hurts. Women often express emotional history through projection. A woman who constantly criticizes others for being too flirty may have been cheated on. One who's always skeptical of other women's success might feel like she's constantly behind in her own life. And when she says things like, I just don't get along with other women. That's not independence. That's trauma dressed up as detachment. It might mean she's been burned by past friendships, or that competition has become her default mode of safety. If she's at peace with herself, she'll likely be at peace with others. But if every woman is a threat, it's worth asking, what past experience made her feel like life is a battlefield? These are the moments where her past shows up in plain sight, without you having to dig. All you have to do is listen, not to the gossip, but to the pattern. That's where the truth lives. 3. Conflict style. What she does when things go wrong. If you really want to understand someone's past, don't just watch how they act when things are going right. Watch how they behave when things go wrong. Conflict has a funny way of bringing the past to the surface. And I'm not talking about screaming matches or dramatic breakdowns. I'm talking about those everyday moments of friction. When plans change, when you forget something, when she feels ignored or misunderstood. Does she get quiet and withdraw? Does she lash out, blame, or try to make you feel guilty? Or does she calmly address it, try to understand and move forward? These aren't just random reactions, they're emotional echoes from her history. A woman who was abandoned, emotionally neglected, or betrayed will often respond to conflict with either intense fear or defense. She might shut down because she learned long ago that expressing emotion meant being punished or dismissed. Or she might go into attack mode because in her past, vulnerability got her hurt. Either way, her behaviour during conflict is shaped by the way she had to survive emotionally. You'll notice it in the way she escalates or avoids any uncomfortable moment. If she instantly assumes the worst about you, she's likely still carrying stories written by someone else. The way she fights isn't just about you. It's a reenactment of how she learned to protect herself. This is why you don't need to dig for information. People reenact their emotional past more often than they retell it. And when conflict arises, the old wounds often come out to play. Your job isn't to fix them. It's to recognize the pattern and ask yourself if you're prepared to be part of a healing process, or caught in the crossfire of someone else's unresolved war. 4. Her relationship timeline without asking directly. You don't have to ask her, so, when was your last relationship? To figure out her romantic timeline. In fact, that kind of question usually gets you the surface level version, the clean, edited story she's comfortable telling. But if you really want to know what her past looks like, all you have to do is listen. Because her stories, the way she phrases things, even the way she refers to people in her life, they're all filled with subtle clues. For example, if she says, I used to love that little sushi place. We went there all the time. Pause on that we. That isn't about a friend. That's a breadcrumb from a relationship she might not be ready to name. You'll also start to notice patterns in how often she refers to the past, how long ago things happened, how fresh they still feel. A woman who casually drops, that was 2 years ago, is letting you know her timeline without even realizing it. But if she avoids mentioning time altogether, or skips over emotional milestones like they're irrelevant, that could signal unresolved feelings. You'll also hear it in how she talks about transitions. After everything fell apart, or I had to rebuild myself. Phrases that suggest more than just a breakup. They suggest recovery. The key here is to stop relying on direct questions. People reveal far more when they're relaxed in conversation, not feeling like they're under a microscope. She'll tell you about her past, just not always with dates and labels. Sometimes her silence about a period in her life is the loudest clue of all. You just have to be the kind of man who hears what isn't being said. 5. Her views on men in general. One of the most revealing things a woman will ever show you, without meaning to, is how she talks about men in general. And I don't mean how she talks about you. I mean how she talks about men as a concept. What does she say when she talks about her ex's male friends or even random guys on TV? Is it playful and neutral, or is it bitter, guarded, a little too sharp? Because that tone carries history. When she jokes, "Ugh, men are the worst," it might sound harmless. But if that joke keeps coming up, and always with a sting behind the smile, it usually means that joke is rooted in something real. Someone made her feel that way once, or many times. You're not just listening to her opinion, you're witnessing her trust history. If she automatically assumes men are liars, cheaters, emotionally unavailable, it's not because she read it in a book, it's because she lived it. And while she may be fun, flirty, even affectionate with you right now, those beliefs don't disappear just because you treat her well. If her view of men is fundamentally negative, it will shape the way she relates to you, especially when things get tough. Maybe she gets overly suspicious when you're quiet. Maybe she expects you to leave before you even know why she's pulling away. That's not just mood swings, that's memory in motion. Understanding this doesn't mean you judge her. It means you see her, clearly. You see what experiences formed her beliefs, and you get to decide whether you're walking into a relationship or stepping into someone else's damage loop. Because if she's still holding the weight of every man who broke her trust, sooner or later she's going to hand that weight to you and expect you to carry it. 6. How she talks about her family. If you really want to understand how a woman forms emotional bonds, look at how she talks about her family, especially her parents. You don't have to dig for deep trauma or personal stories. All you need to do is pay attention to the way she frames them. When she mentions her father, is there warmth, distance, bitterness, a quiet shrug? That tone will tell you more than any dramatic story ever could. For example, if she says, "Yeah, my dad was around, I guess. We weren't super close, but whatever," that whatever is doing a lot of emotional heavy lifting. That indifference isn't always real. It's often a mask for disappointment that's been buried long enough to feel normal. The relationship she had with her father in particular tends to set the blueprint for how she views men, trust, and emotional safety. If she had to earn love, she might feel the need to prove herself constantly in a relationship. If love was inconsistent, affection one day, cold silence the next, she may expect the same unpredictability from you. On the other hand, if she grew up in a nurturing, emotionally secure home, that stability often shows up in how she handles conflict, how quickly she calms down, and how she communicates her needs. Her family dynamic is like the operating system running quietly in the background of her emotional world. It doesn't shout, but it controls everything. You're not prying, you're observing. How she reacts when you ask about holidays, how she speaks about her mum in passing, whether she rolls her eyes at the idea of family time or lights up when talking about childhood memories. Those are all access points into her emotional foundation. And the truth is, people rarely outgrow the emotional language they were raised with. So if you want to know how she'll love you, start by noticing how she learned to love at home. 7. What makes her emotional and what doesn't. There's something deeply revealing about what makes a woman emotional, and just as important, what doesn't. You're not just looking for tears or dramatic reactions. You're looking for those moments when something hits her in a way she wasn't expecting. Maybe it's a movie scene about abandonment that suddenly makes her go quiet. Maybe it's a song about betrayal that she skips every time it comes on. Or maybe it's the opposite. She seems completely unfazed by things that would shake most people. These reactions aren't random. They're emotional footprints from the past, scars she's still carrying, or numbness she's learned to adopt to survive. Sometimes, what stirs her up isn't even related to relationships directly. It might be something as simple as being left out of a group invite, or someone raising their voice in frustration. And when she responds with unusual intensity, or shuts down completely, that's a clue. People don't overreact without history. That emotional response is a signal. It says this has happened before. It says this hurt once. And it might say, I'm still not over it. On the flip side, if she seems cold when you talk about your own vulnerable moments, or brushes off someone else's pain, that can be its own kind of warning. Detachment isn't always strength. It can be armor that was built way too early. You won't find this out by asking, what makes you emotional? You'll find it out by watching. The things that move her or don't are like emotional highlighters, tracing back to a version of her you've never met. And the more you notice them, the more clearly you'll see the difference between someone who has faced their past and someone who's still running from it. 8. Final tip. Observation over interrogation. The smartest men don't ask a million questions. They watch. They don't dig for stories. They wait for the truth to reveal itself in the quiet spaces, the offhand comments, the patterns she didn't even know she had. That's the difference between interrogation and observation. Anyone can ask, what happened in your last relationship? And get the polished version. But the man who really pays attention already knows the answer, because he saw how she flinched when you cancelled plans, how she shut down when things got too intimate, or how she lit up when someone finally praised her for something deeper than her looks. These aren't coincidences. These are emotional fingerprints. Being observant doesn't mean being cold or calculating. It means being emotionally literate. It means reading the room, reading her, with the kind of awareness that makes you a man who doesn't fall for the mask. Because when you rely on words alone, you're often buying the story she tells herself to survive. But when you rely on observation, you're seeing the woman underneath, the one who may still be hurting, the one who might be ready to grow, or the one who isn't. Either way, now you know. And that kind of clarity, that's power. So don't chase answers. Invite them. Let her reveal herself, slowly, unknowingly, because the truth always leaks out in behaviour. The only question is, are you sharp enough to see it? 9. Conclusion. If you've made it this far, you're already miles ahead of most guys out there, because now you're not just hearing what a woman says, you're seeing who she is. And once you learn to observe with this kind of clarity, your dating life changes. You stop wasting time, you stop falling for the highlight reel, and you start connecting with women in a way that's real, grounded, and on your terms. If this gave you even one insight you didn't have before, drop a comment below and let me know what part hit hardest. Was it something she said? Something she didn't say? I read every single one. And if you're the kind of man who wants to understand the deeper game, the psychology, the patterns, the emotional layers most guys miss, then hit that subscribe button right now. This is just the beginning. In the next video, I'm breaking down the 5 types of emotional baggage you can spot in the first 10 minutes of meeting a woman, and how to tell if she's healed or hiding. You're not going to want to miss that. Until then, keep your eyes open, your standards high, and your peace protected. I'll see you soon.